All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, September 10th, 2014, and this is Before the First Cup with Jules and Lady Pitbull on UCY.tv. Good morning, Lady Pitbull. Good to have you back.
Hey, thank you. Jeez.
Happy Wednesday.
Oh, my goodness. It's been crazy. I've been, offline. My landline didn't work. My TV didn't work. So I don't care about the TV so much. But, jeez, it was rough going, 4 days without a landline.
Wow. So was that an actual landline, or was that a phone line that went through your cable provider?
Yeah, phone line that went through the cable provider. But it's it's supposed to be a landline. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're not. They're VoIP.
Yeah, apparently so. I got it specifically for, for an emergency, but it doesn't seem like it's going to stand up to an emergency.
Yeah, no, when I had my daughter, VoIP was really just kind of taken off in the home space, and that's one of the things that I had looked at. I knew that, Comcast, Time Warner, I don't know, CenturyLink, some of the big names, though, they all started, and even my local phone company, Frontier, and I'm sure probably Verizon as well, all the upstate New York region is mostly Verizon, they all started doing VoIP at the central office. So, when they were offering these bundled packages, yeah, that traditional landline is no longer a landline. Now, my Frontier, I actually pay for a physical landline, like old school, and that was because of 911. And we talked about this on the show before.
Yeah.
How they route 911 from VoIP versus how they route it from the old school phone switches.
Right.
Where it's a local PSAP versus a regional PSAP. And yeah, here's the thing, and I don't know if people realize this, the old school landline actually send power over the SS7 network that phones, the old school switches run on. So even if you have a power outage, you still have telephone. Now, if you have a digital phone that has, the wireless receiver and your built-in voicemail, and it's got to be plugged in and whatever, then obviously if the power goes out, your phone's not going to be receiving signal, but that line still is. So I keep an old school push-button phone actually in one of my cupboards just for that reason.
Nice. That's good.
yeah, and those SS7 networks have heavy duty backup. So, lines might be jammed in an emergency. Like I remember that massive power outage down the East Coast trying to call New York City, or 9/11 coming up tomorrow, anniversary. 9/11 trying to call my sister to find out what the hell was going on, and everything was jammed. You couldn't make a phone call through to anybody.
Wow.
That's not going to help, but at least you'll be able to call 911 and maybe even make some local calls if the disaster was not in your immediate area.
Right. Exactly. So if, in my case, if the cable goes out, the rest of it goes out, and that's rough living like that. The only thing that worked was my stinking cell phone. Yeah,
and, with the kill switch on the cell phone now, right?
Yeah.
And they make that legal, at least in California.
Yeah.
And, the cell towers don't have very extensive backup systems on them. I don't know. Your safety, you might want to take a look at, now that you have a roommate, how much a landline is, like an old school landline.
Yeah. You'd have to go through, AT&T or something like that to get something like that?
Our incumbent, who was your old school phone provider up there?
AT&T.
AT&T, they, when you were growing up, they were the ones who provided the phones?
Yeah.
Yeah, then they'll probably have the landlines, yes.
Okay. Yuck, I hate them.
I know. I can't stand any of them, but...
Me neither.
And I got to tell you, I bitched about my bill before. I tried to go back to the old school message service, which I had when I lived in Buffalo. So I never made phone calls to anybody, you know what I mean? I would see my friends, and they'd come over or whatever, but we never really called each other. And if I ever called home, I would do the one ring, You know, if my mother got the one ring, she'd know to call me back. But that was like, you know, $8 or $6 a month. Typically, it was for retirees. That was how, you know, it was used a lot, I had seen. But you were charged then per phone call that you made outgoing from your phone. So, you know, I mean, I'm sure you still probably had exorbitant taxes and FCC charges and whatever on top of that.
It was nuts.
But it still was as low as you possibly could get. And for someone who didn't like to talk on the phone and someone who didn't talk on the phone, that was fine. But once I moved here, I tried to get the message service, and the best they could do for me was $20 a month. That's basic service, and that's with no taxes, by the way. And then with all the taxes and the FCC charges on top of it, it's another $10 in taxes. So it was $30 a month just to have a landline.
Yeah, that's crazy.
It is, but, you know, I look at it and I'm like, wow, it almost seems to me like they want us to all get off of that and go to one of the new technologies where we're dependent on the internet and our cell phones.
Bingo.
I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it because I know I design these networks. That stuff goes down. You are shit out of luck. You're down. You have no way to call. You are isolated. That's it.
That's what they want. That's exactly what they want. They need to put everybody into a little tiny cage, electronic cage. So, and you know, they're trying to get the money systems like that too.
Mm-hmm. I'm not going for it. I want to be able, if I got a call and there's a massive emergency, I want to be able to at least be able to dial my phone and have somebody somewhere pick up on the other end.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But then again, it's when if no one else is on that system either, you know what I mean? It's like crazy.
Yeah, well, like the majority of the public has moved off of it, but emergency services are still on it.
Right. Oh, that's important right there.
Probably not all of them. But, I mean, if they were smart, I've actually been in a couple of the emergency operations centers back from when I took that FEMA class. They actually took us for a big tour of the county one that we have here. And every single agency in this county that is involved in emergency services actually had an old school, and I mean old school, phone sitting on their desk with then their little placard on the front of the desk as to who the agency was. They all had separate old school landlines and old school phones.
Oh, yeah. There you go. I mean, there's a reason why they're still on it.
Right.
You know? I
mean, I worked for a company that did SS7 phone systems for 30 years, you know. So there's, as far as reliability and stability, especially in this hackable world, that's probably the closest you're going to get to at least being ironclad. And I mean, it's not 100%, but way, 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 way better than a 3G or a 4G network for certain.
Absolutely.
Way better than a satellite network. I mean, an EMP, trying to think if an EMP would affect things. I mean, those old switches, a lot of them were electromechanical. They've, of course, upgraded, so now they're more PC-like. There's cards and stuff that go in them and circuit boards. But they're in huge, very well-protected operations centers, at least at the core.
Right.
You know, I don't know. And even if you look at the PSAPs, the local, like for your cable company, basically your PSAP is just the little, I don't even know what you'd call it. It's not even a pole. It's just the little thing that sticks out of the ground at the back of the yard, and it's probably got like an off-green metal cover to it. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Absolutely, yes.
And even the local phone lines were like that, though you don't see that anymore. We used to steal all the leftover phone cable, like when they'd be connecting up new houses. When I first, when I was a kid and we moved into our development, you know, they'd take their wire snippers, and so they'd hook someone up with the new phone wire and then snip, snip, snip. So there'd be piles of all this beautifully colored single strand phone wire laying all on the ground.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so we'd make them into bracelets and whatever, and I'm sure that probably had all kinds of poisonous chemicals on it, come to think of it. But
that's funny.
You don't really see those much anymore, but like the regional PSAPs are typically little brick buildings or cinder block buildings with a big fence around it.
Yeah, that's right. That's
so,
right. Interesting.
I don't know. Not that I'm jacking for any type of large commercial entity, but as far as safety goes, and from what I understand about the different technologies, I would say a landline, especially if you got a kid.
Oh, yeah.
If you got a kid and 911 is important, I mean, kids fall, all kinds of horrible things happen. I don't want to gamble with saving a few bucks on just having my cell phone to not be able to get assistance if I need it badly.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. And whereas everybody else is relying on their cell phones, those very few that are left, would get the assistance. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a smart thing. I mean, they're trying to push everybody off that grid, though. They really are.
Well, it's probably expensive to maintain, and the technicians that still know how to operate that network get a pretty penny because it's old school technology. That was back from the 50s and the 60s.
Yeah, they're all completely retired or in the midst of being pushed out.
Well, and a lot of the companies that produce the parts for all those phone systems are out of business.
Yes.
Look at Nortel. They went absolutely belly up. So all those government institutions that we were selling those phone systems to are having to buy like black market secondhand cards now for their $10 million system that they invested 40 years of upgrades into,
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's the literal rewiring of the infrastructure. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, they did at one point, when Nortel was still in business, they did have an upgrade path, and that was always like their one big thing. They called themselves Evergreen, so your investment would never be wasted, and you could get external servers that then connected with a new card, and then you could start routing your traffic to IP traffic. So you could bring in new IP lines, instead of doing the old SS7 network. But again, now the company's out of business, so I don't even know what people are doing that own all that stuff now.
Gosh.
And certifications, when you have a manufacturer that supports all the equipment, and we're talking like, some places had a core with 1,000 locations out there that were attached to this. So it's a huge deal. And I know that the upgrades are probably still going on, and they probably are trying to cut everything over to IP and running on, the internet backbone. But it's not a good idea. In my
you have a few like people that are of like our mind, and like little old ladies that don't touch a cell phone. They've had that landline, for the whole, ever. And that's pretty much the only people that have landlines now.
Yeah.
So...
Anyway, so what did they tell you? Why were you down for so many days?
They didn't say anything about it. We had a storm blow through in here on Friday, and it was pretty significant. We were watching the trees just blow right over. It was kind of interesting. But, and then, bam, right away we lost TV. And I thought that all these, with cable and everything, all the stuff was underground. All those wires are underground. So I don't know how the hell we lost that with the storm, but they just now put it on, like, yesterday around just 4-6. And that was like 4 days it was off.
Yeah, not all of it's underground. Some of it they have to string across poles. If somebody hit a tree and a line came down, or a tree came down on a pole or something, it's very possible. I mean, even here, our cable and our electric, at least in my local area, are all trenched underground. But, you go down some of the main drags and you'll see the cable line tagged up on the poles.
Oh, okay. Well, then that has to be where what happened. something must have gotten completely obliterated if it took him 4 days to fix it. And really, where I take my my classes at night, they're not going to get even power on until like tomorrow. So. Oof. Yeah, so we've been practicing outside in the field, which is kind of cool. It was really fun, actually, last night. So.
Oh, well, that's good.
Yeah.
So, what else is going on?
Let's see. Other than that, not much. I'm just it's kind of like a sit and wait and see what they're going to do tomorrow, really. I'm kind of just trying to dig up all my survival stuff, like from underneath piles of junk that I gotta clear through. So I was doing that yesterday all day, sorting through stuff and throwing crap away that I don't want anymore. And that was kind of a big ordeal. But we don't know what the hell they're gonna pull tomorrow. So, and I guess the Ebola is just going crazy.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about both of those today.
Oh, good.
Just as I was getting ready to come on air this morning, Mr. Turbeville posted his newest story titled, "Does Obama Plan to Announce Bombing of Syria on the Eve of 9/11 Anniversary?" Wouldn't that be fitting?
Yes, absolutely fitting.
I wanted to just read a little bit of this.
Yeah.
I tried to get Brandon on, but he is... he's at work right now. I forget that. Oh, I feel sorry for the people that still do the 8 to 5. Though I wish I did, because then I'd at least have a paycheck. As the 13th anniversary of 9/11 draws closer, so does the possibility that the United States and NATO will finally be able to realize their dream of direct airstrikes against the secular government of Bashar al-Assad's Syria. After years of propaganda alleging Assad's brutality against his own people, and a recent volley of ISIS is under the bed style hype. ISIS hiding under the bed. Complete with beheadings, forced starvations, and other savagery, the American people remain utterly befuddled regarding the true nature of events taking place inside of Syria, Iraq, and virtually every other country in the world, including their own. Man, I love Brandon's stories.
He's awesome.
As a result, the buildup of a Western bombing campaign against Syria, while rejected by the general public only a year ago, will now likely move full steam ahead with the tacit support of the population. Thus, as the 13th anniversary of 9/11 approaches, U.S. President Barack Obama is planning to make a dramatic statement regarding his strategy to combat ISIS in both Iraq and Syria. Although Obama has repeatedly stated that he will not commit U.S. troops to either Iraq or Syria, the possibility of quote-unquote targeted airstrikes or aerial bombardment is by no means off the table. Of course, it is also important to point out that Obama has already broken his promise regarding boots on the ground with Iraq. Yes, he did. With the deployment of at least 1,100 American personnel in the Middle Eastern nation. Yeah, weren't they all like quote-unquote consultants?
Yeah.
Still, as the Detroit Free Press reports, quote, the plan is expected to involve an expansion of airstrikes in Iraq that began in August. Obama is also likely to discuss a coalition of allies that has been assembled in opposition to the Islamic State and to brace Americans for the possibility that the battle could take years. Oh, God. Oh, yeah, here he says it. In other words, Obama is once again channeling his inner George W. Bush in promoting war with no end against a sovereign state who is the victim of Anglo-American meddling and Western-backed terrorism. Brandon, I think you deserve the freaking Cupid doll today.
Heck yeah. That's awesome. Oh, we're going to be in there for years.
It's pretty unbelievable. This article goes on for quite a while, so I'm not going to read this whole entire thing, but I will drop this in the chat. Brandon's reading is always enjoyable, and if there's anyone who has their finger on the pulse as to what is going on, it is Mr. Turbeville.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he is. He's a great guy, too. He's really nice. Very smart. And he does. He keeps his eye on this stuff very, very, very closely.
And is able to decipher it and then relay it down on written type, which is cool.
Yes, and mixes in just enough sarcasm.
Yeah, he makes it great. Oh God, that's troublesome. I mean, it was like when George Bush said that we were going to be in Iraq for years to come. I mean, when they say that crap, it's like completely anonymous, you know. It's never-ending war, never-ending. That's what they mean.
And never-ending profits is what it is.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's all I see. I hear cha-ching, 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 cha-ching. Every single look at us financing the Iron Dome for Israel, and then we find out it's $50,000 every bomb it prevents. Cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my God.
You know, I say, Mommy's cutting off the credit card.
Yeah, hello. I wish we could just pull a switch and just defund this crap.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why couldn't we?
Yeah, there would just be more beheadings. You know? Jeez.
Yes, by the way, you did hear that little promo that I made on the beheadings.
Yes,
I dropped it to you.
It.
I actually, during Brandon's show that ran Monday, it'll run again on Friday, I cut that into the break as well. He enjoyed it, and you know, I was like, oh, I don't know if it's going to fit, so then I listened to his show Monday night, and the whole beginning of his show, he was talking about the beheadings. I was like, oh
fantastic.
It's
perfect. Wow, that's amazing. That's fantastic. I mean,
you know,
talk
here's
about
the thing.
a segue.
What kind of a world do we live in that all of us could be so laissez-faire about beheadings? Now, granted, many of these have now been proven to be fake. But on the other hand, like we've talked about many times before with video games and just the constant violence that we see, it desensitizes people.
That's right.
You know, to the point where something as horrific as a beheading, I mean, even thinking about that 10 years ago would have sent chills down your spine.
Yeah.
Now you're cracking jokes about it.
Exactly. And it was just like Hammy, how he got graphic in that clip, man. And it was,
that was so
really graphic. I mean, it was good, and I'm glad you turned it into a commercial. It's fantastic.
And the gurgling. Which, again, it's not even funny, but, you know, I mean, that's what we've been reduced to now. And that's what they want. But the sad fact of the matter is they're trying to elicit fear. And, right, we've talked about this. Looking at some of the DARPA research, they have discovered that fear is one of the main ways to utilize mind control.
That's
trauma-based.
Right.
And, hey, where is the big trauma that started all this? Oh, the anniversary is tomorrow.
Well, go actually before that. There's Oklahoma. That happened too, and
but you know what? Oklahoma, even though Timothy McVeigh was from here, did you know that? He was from up here in Lockport.
Oh, no, I didn't know that.
So we followed that very closely. It was on the news every day, all the time about Timothy McVeigh. Yeah, he grew up in Lockport, which is right between Buffalo and Rochester. We didn't really pay a lot of attention to it, and I don't know why. I don't know why it wasn't a big deal, but I don't remember people being very traumatized. Now, people in the movement found it very significant. I wasn't in the movement at the time. I was still out in La La Land somewhere.
Yeah, me too.
And so it didn't really affect me. But 9/11 affected everybody. I mean, I literally was in my downstairs. It's not really a basement. It's kind of like a half. You know, I have a split level house, so it's kind of like a half basement. You know, where like 4 feet up, you're at ground level looking out a window.
Yeah.
But I was down there for weeks on end. I mean, I was afraid to leave the house. I was afraid there was going to be a terrorist around the corner. And maybe it was because my sister lives in New York and it was in the same state that I live in. And it was pretty traumatic. But
sure.
Didn't everybody feel that way?
No. And I'll tell you, that morning of 9/11 when I had a friend of mine call me and wake me up in the morning, and she spent an hour and a half talking about herself And then by like the hour and a half when it went by, she said, "Oh, by the way, do you know that a plane just went into the Pentagon?" And I'm like, "What? How long ago?" She's like, "Oh, about an hour ago." And I'm like, "What?"
So she never even mentioned it?
She never mentioned it. She never mentioned it until like the very last of the conversation where she was done talking about herself. And I'm like, "I gotta let you go." And I turned the TV on and I saw the freaking, flame in the towers and all that. So, and oh my God. It didn't affect everybody.
Well, I got to tell you, when that happened, I was still an engineer, and my one sales guy, Ron, and I were just heading out for a customer meeting, and this was a pretty big customer to talk about, converting their network and whatever the hell. If I remember correctly, that was probably like a 10-location network, too, so it was a big deal. We were meeting with the CEO and the CFO, so, it was talking dollars and cents and configuration and whatever, and just as I was outside having a smoke before Ron came out and we were hitting the car, and he came out and he said, "Oh, a plane hit a building in New York City." I'm like, "It did? Holy shit, where?" And he's like, "I don't know. They're not really sure yet what's going on." And so we got into the car, we're driving, we had the radio on, and we started hearing now about, potential terrorist attacks and blah, blah, blah. It was about a 20-minute drive. And then we got there. Nobody in the meeting had heard anything about it, and we had to pretend like nothing was going on.
Oh, God.
Oh, my God. For an hour and a half, we had this meeting. So by the time we got back, the whole office, nobody was working. They were all in the conference room, and they had the TV on, and everyone was just sitting there gape-mouthed watching the reports. And, then it was just vision after vision after vision after vision of burning buildings and people jumping, and it was horrible. It was really horrible.
Yeah, it is.
So, I don't know. And then, we all know what happened after that. So, tomorrow will be interesting. Though, here's the thing. Just like all the other anniversaries, nothing happens. We've been sitting here with our breath held every single year. I find it, if nothing else, very symbolic if Obama announces the bombing of Syria. They have been salivating for now at least the last 2, maybe even 3 years, trying to find every back door to get their foot in there.
Yes.
And ISIS was just the perfect manufactured excuse.
Absolutely.
It's been so well orchestrated.
It is, and everybody knows they were freaking Al-Qaeda before they were called ISIS, and then all these dozen name changes and all this. It's the same freaking people.
Yeah, wait, let's, speaking of which, let me just make sure my player's not on, because right before I came on air, I was hitting the newest Pigmine uploads from last night, and that was the one that caught my eye. It's a CNN clip, and it says, the title is, "Which is who's worse, ISIS or Al Qaeda?" And I shared that on one of my pages, like, isn't that kind of a dumb question? And I saw Hammy actually added a comment to the Pigmine video that says it's like the Republican Democrat question.
That's awesome. Right on, Hammy.
So, hold on. Let me see if I can pull my...
Fantastic.
Let me see if I can pull my other computer in and not get freaking feedback. I dug into... I've been mentioning that since they forced us to do the Skype upgrade, I've had this echo again where there's like an open microphone that shouldn't be there.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the old days that I discovered buried way down in the bowels of the PC, and I can't find it now. Yesterday I spent some time in the afternoon looking for it, and I can't find it anywhere.
Yikes, that's disturbing.
Yeah, so who knows? Maybe they put some sort of software mic on there that now is in like cloaked mode.
Right. Yeah, you'll never find it.
Alright, I was having some major difficulty finding myself today. Answer? Alright, so let's hear what bullshit CNN's spewing out today. Which is worse, ISIS or Al Qaeda? I can't wait. Here it comes.
The going to have much more
ISIS on TVs around the world.
ISIS targets ISIS.
Now new video showing the organization's alleged drone capability. In fact, every day new threats. ISIS is front page news. But what about the other terrorist group formerly in the headlines? Al-Qaeda. Hardly mentioned at all these days. They're also known for their video presentations. Remember this? Osama bin Laden with his subordinates.
Al-Qaeda, the organization, is going to have to respond or react to the presence of the Islamic State and the kind of attention and really celebrity it's gaining.
Now, wait a second. First of all, on the eve of 9/11, yes, it's so interesting that they're like making sure they point all this out and how Al-Qaeda's just disappeared from the limelight. But if you remember correctly, we covered a story back quite a number of months ago where, and I don't know if it was I think it was the Bin Laden associated Al-Qaeda group that came out and says, we are not affiliated with those guys in Iraq. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, I remember
They
that.
came out with like a PR hit piece on this other terrorist group that just appeared out of nowhere. And the thing, even at the time, we had postulated, like, how interesting that is. It's all for, 100 Vestal virgins, so why wouldn't they all be pulling together and going, yay, we killed Westerners, right?
Right.
But instead, they're pointing out they have no affiliation with them there. And the only reason why I could think of at the time would be if that group happened to be a brand new Western construct.
Exactly.
And, I mean, now it's all played out and it's pretty apparent, but it just seems very interesting. Okay, so let me continue.
Would encourage them to attack on the anniversary of 9/11, to do the spectacular, to send a message to the Islamic State.
ISIS began as an Al-Qaeda splinter group. Its goal to create an Islamic State across the Muslim world. Even just this week, opening up an India office, a country home to close to 200 million Muslims. Its leader, Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, professes to be a direct descendant of the Prophet Muhammad and can be compared to the infamous Osama bin Laden.
I think Osama bin Laden and Baghdadi share an appreciation of the notion that that Islamism and jihadism around the world cannot be leaderless.
All right, so now let's make sure for all the dumb people we connect a big red dot, beep, 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 between bin Laden and Baghdadi. Hey, they both start with B's, too. The thing is, the people that eat this stuff up, get off the fluoride, all right? Just back the truck up and start looking at it from a global perspective. And once you start backing it up and looking at it all, you can see right through the bullshit.
Oh, it's super easy. Maybe it's because we trained ourselves to do it. How in the hell, this is my question, how in the hell does ISIS have drone capability?
Yeah, I was thinking, well, Israel. Yeah, Israel wants to become the drone capital of the world.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know.
Interesting point.
But, so do we. They are not affiliated with Iran at all. Iran's actually pretty afraid of them. Wasn't Iran going to partner with us in the fight against ISIS?
Yeah, that's right. They were one of the first ones that were ready to jump in there and go into Iraq and start, taking these guys out. But no, we don't really need your help.
I'm sure ISIS got the drones the same way they got the Toyota trucks.
Yeah, the Saudi prince.
And remember, yes, Saudi and Qatar. And remember, our State Department put out a press release a few months ago making certain that we knew that ISIS, also known as ISIL, had formally changed their name to IS to make certain that the Treasury Department knew where to cut the checks to.
Right. Exactly.
Okay, so we're going to hear the rest.
Check?
Yeah. Well, yeah. How much does a drone cost? All right. Hear a little bit more.
And therefore, They act as leaders, as charismatic recruiters, and almost as a symbol of the group that are internationally recognizable.
It has been 13 years since the terror attack right here in New York City. And as Al-Qaeda competes now for the spotlight, some experts wonder if the answer for that organization is not another headline-grabbing move.
Oh! Am I trying to fearmonger, but it's important to understand that they have a strategic calculus playing out right now.
Experts do agree Al-Qaeda will not want to keep waiting in the wings while ISIS is center stage.
I do believe that they must be highly incentivized to try to conduct an attack in the relatively near future, or risk
like tomorrow
by the Islamic State.
Jean Casares, CNN, New York.
Wow. If that was not a setup video, I don't know what is.
I know. It makes you freaking... I can't even believe how much it makes me sick. It makes me sick!
It makes me angry.
Oh my God.
So, has anyone looked into... I know you've been offline. And honestly, I've been kind of buried in a whole bunch of stuff, so I did not spend time looking into it. But has anybody verified the 11 missing planes?
I looked into that just before I went offline, and I wasn't able to do that.
Because here's a thought that I had after we talked about that a few days ago. The Indonesian airlines, the two that went missing, that then there were some reports that, and in the very beginning, there were reports about them being able to cloak aircraft, if you remember that. But
yes.
Not too long ago, and I'm thinking maybe like a month and a half ago, they actually came out and said that, yes, there was some cloaking technology that they believe, and this was officially, that they believe had been used. So, if there is a cloaking technology that can cloak an entire airline, and these two planes went missing, that to me looks like beta test 1 and beta test 2.
Mm-hmm.
So, now, in the meantime, and remember, those airlines actually were the first one, the MH17. I think that was the first one, right? 270 was the second one.
Yep.
MH17 was actually the headline long before ISIS really showed up into the picture.
That's right.
You know, like how we have cycles, and it's, a week of this, and then all of a sudden we totally forget about that, and it's the week of this new thing, and,
yeah.
It's how primetime television works. Isn't that interesting?
Well, there's mind control is mind control. You know what I mean?
Well, and they're just trying to, build the narrative. So it's in your mind that planes went missing. It's in your mind somewhere. Here, actually, let's find that story about the cloaking technology. Technology. What did we call it? What was the name of the... Malaysian, that's what it was. It wasn't Indonesian.
Yeah.
They were Malaysian.
Yes.
March, but I know there was something way more recent. How about Vanish? Vanish plane. I don't know, I wish I remembered what the headline read as. Missing flight. MH370 allowed to vanish, minister claims. Here. Yes. This is the video. It was a Pigmine video from June 16th.
Wow,
and yes,
yay.
Here, it's actually the top hit. Vanish plane Pigmine. Planes vanish over Europe. That's what got my attention. That then there were planes that started vanishing over Europe on radar. And I said, no shit, Sherlock. So here they are now. We have two Malaysian planes that just vanish. And now they're doing tests over Europe. Boop, 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 boop. So I want to play this. This is Truth Loader that did this.
And finally to the skies above Europe, where something very strange has been going on.
Airliners had been vanishing off air traffic radar for up to 25 minutes at a time before reappearing again on their original course. 2 incidents were recorded, the first on June 5th and the second on June 12th, affecting 13 aircraft. The flights reportedly disappeared over Austria, Slovakia, Germany and the Czech Republic. According to officials, there was never any danger to any of the flights and emergency measures were put in place, including bringing in extra controllers, establishing voice contact with all the planes and moving them further apart. But what caused it? Well, it's being blamed on electronic war games being conducted in Eastern Europe.
Hear that?
By NATO forces, although that's not been confirmed. Slovakian reports suggest that the war games were pre-planned and involved interrupting preset radio frequencies, and Slovak Air Control said they contacted the military as soon as the disruption began and the training sequence was halted, which is probably just as well, although it didn't stop it from happening twice. Maybe they should just have checked before they started. Anyway, that's it for this week. Do let us know what you think of this in the comments, and we'll be back again later in the week.
So, what do you think of that? 13 planes disappeared off radar.
That's really, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it definitely sounds like they're trying to get another 9/11 brewing up somehow.
Somehow, somewhere, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, then all of a sudden, 11 alleged planes missing from Libya that then, you know, we're going to find out that ISIS, on top of having drones now, all of a sudden somehow has this radio jamming frequency technology.
Yeah, like they constructed that in a cave.
In a cave, yeah. With the dialysis machine.
Yeah.
Running on solar panels.
And generators.
Well, yeah, but then where are they going to get the gasoline?
Oh, my
solar
God.
panels in the desert.
Steal it from the Iraqi oil field.
Oh, that's true. That is true.
Holy crap. What kind of crap can they freaking come up with next? I mean, and it's just, you know, it's a freaking shell game, you know, it's a big magic show with these people. Oh my God. Look at the plane, look at the Malaysian plane. Now you see it, now you don't. I mean, holy crap.
Yeah. Oh, hold on.
I got killed.
Do you hear that? Like, what the hell is that?
Really bad, too.
But not always. It doesn't happen always.
Really?
Well, I was talking before and we were connected and I wasn't feeding back.
Yeah, see, that's bizarre. Something's definitely going on. My computer's completely infected. Like,
oh yeah, you mentioned that.
The chat room, even the chat page has all these crazy pop-ups, and like if I even rest my mouse on the where I type in to post a comment, it switches over and a new 3 pages open up. It's messed up, and I can't even keep the chat room open. I can't even keep the chat page on because there's commercials playing at the bottom of it.
Oh, you're kidding me.
No, it's bizarre. And Zori spent like 2 hours helping me, and it just didn't really resolve the problem, so it's rough.
Wow.
It's driving me crazy.
Well, my newest thing is the way I communicate when I'm not sitting in this chair with hosts a lot of the time is through Facebook Messenger, because most of them have Facebook pages for, you know, posting news articles and their archives for the show, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it is a good tool to at least try and reach people while it lasts. And, you know, there's a messaging app that goes along with that. And so it's on my phone. And yes, I know they open your mic and they open your camera on your phone. I've already run into that a few times. But the newest... Oh, and here's some new things that have been going on. My phone just randomly reboots now, so I'm assuming that they install new software every time that happens.
Oh, my God.
In the 4 years I've had this phone, that never happened before now. But here's the next newest thing. So now in just Facebook chat, and I'm saying just because I've gone to texting before to remedy the situation, and my keyboard works fine, but just in Facebook chat, when I'm typing certain words, my keyboard stops typing letters.
Oh,
It'll let me type letters, but no letters appear.
Oh, my God, that's bizarre.
Yeah, so today it was some sort of... I have a friend whose cat is in really bad shape, and I was giving suggestions from back when my last cat who passed away, Casey, was having all of his issues, and I typed in a medication name that they had him on that was it was a stool softener and a motility drug for intestines, and 2 times within an hour. 2 different times within an hour, and the only times that my keyboard stopped working is when I typed the name of the drug and the word motility. I don't know why that set off an alarm, but seemed very unusual that those were the only 2 times the keyboard stopped working this morning, and it was the same 2 words, same 2 terms.
Wow. Unbelievable.
But whatever,
Man.
Whatever.
Maybe, all those keyboard strokes that you're typing in and they don't appear, maybe they're appearing as something else somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Well, Facebook announced there was a study that was being done at one of the universities, because, all the data that is put on Facebook is being dumped into psychology departments. I don't know if you knew that. Like everything we do. They're using it to model artificial intelligence is part of what it is. Another one is surveillance. Another one is pre-crime. You know what I mean? Like they're using it for all these different experiments that are financed by not only big corporations but also DARPA and the Brain Project and IBM, and all these assholes are in the middle of it. But one of the experiments that was going on at one of the military-industrial complex universities that are out there, it was probably Princeton or MIT or one of them, was utilizing every keystroke, regardless if it went into a message, every single keystroke that every single user had put into a chat window, and then they were comparing what you typed and didn't send versus what you typed and did send.
Oh my God! Of course, of
so,
course.
Pretty interesting.
Yikes! You have a little misspelling that you didn't do, and you caught the misspelling, and you erase it, and oh my God!
Or you type something like you're pissed off, and then you think better of it.
Yes, bingo. Oh my God! I can't even deal with this crap anymore. It's just insane.
Here's something else that I see that's going on. So as all of this is amping up globally, I really am starting to see an unwrapping of society. And I almost think that really is what part of the intention is.
Mm-hmm.
If I don't know, do you think I'm wrong on that?
No, I'm not. I think you're dead straight on.
That zombie apocalypse thing that we kind of all laughed about a few years ago is really what I think they're trying to incite.
I think so too. I actually, believe it or not, had zombie dreams last night.
I actually had pandemic dreams where I was one of the only people left. And I have to tell you, I haven't dreamt in years. I used to have hellfire dreams and death destruction dreams all the time, and then a few years ago they all went black. I haven't dreamt in years now, which actually it was good because I really hated those dreams.
Yeah.
And last night I woke up from a pandemic dream and I was one of the only people left, and I was like, why am I one of the only people left? Well, maybe it's because I don't go out a lot. I'm not exposed to all these pathogens. And then I remember thinking to myself, oh my God, I better be careful then and get a mask on, because that means that I don't have any type of exposure to this stuff. And then I woke up.
So both of us had a weird dream. One pandemic, one zombie. They've got to be doing something. I don't know what, but...
Well, it's because it's all in your psyche. It's in your conscious. It's in your, your short-term memory.
Yeah.
And it's just getting pounded in there. But I'm thinking about it a lot, too,
True.
Very true. But I'm just seeing some of these crazy headlines this morning. Here's an interesting one. This one's just kind of absolutely bizarro, weird. U.S. company creates tsunami survival capsule. And that TV show that's on right now that I have not seen at all because I don't watch TV, but I've been told about it by a few people that I should definitely watch it because it's something down my alley. It's called the Dome.
Really?
Where I guess a whole section of, I don't know if it's a country or a city, is in this dome that they can't get out of, but they don't realize it right away.
Oh my god, that sounds really creepy.
But yeah, this is a tsunami survival capsule, and there's an illustration here that shows it like a big glass dome over a city.
Oh my god.
Being created in response to the Fukushima tsunami and disaster. Oh, maybe they'll put New York City in a dome. Here, let's see what this says. This is fear, people. And hey, wouldn't this work for like Agenda 21, locking us all in cities?
I think that's their goal.
It says almost 20,000 people were killed when an earthquake triggered a tsunami that engulfed the northeastern coast of Japan in 2011. Engineers in the U.S. believe that they have refined a way to protect lives during such an event. Survival capsules.
When a tsunami hits, it's often not the wave itself that is deadly, but what it leaves in its wake.
As it destroys everything that it floods, it creates a tremendous debris field. And this debris field is actually the danger of being in the water in a tsunami.
With only a 2 to 3 minute warning ahead of a tsunami, there's little time to escape, and often nowhere safe to seek refuge when the alarm sounds. Aerospace engineers in Seattle believe they may have found the answer. Their solution? A spherical survival capsule.
Sharp objects will hit the capsule, or the capsule will bump into things, and more often than not, things will ricochet. So the spherical surface can help deflect the load.
With skills borrowed from their aerospace experience, the creators of the survival capsule have designed it to be light, strong, affordable, and above all else, impregnable.
This is someone climbs into it.
Rigorous testing to make sure they could withstand the hazards of a tsunami and its aftermath.
But, until you actually have one of those events and have something like this product in that environment, you can't say for 100% sure what's going to happen.
The company is now working with Japanese partners to market larger versions of the survival capsule, capable of carrying up to 10 people. These could be located on the top of public buildings or semi-buried to protect people from typhoons as well as tsunamis, all with one purpose.
We're hoping that this capsule will provide a safe, secure way of avoiding death in a tsunami in the future.
Experts predict more than 300,000 people would be killed if an earthquake were to strike off the coast of Tokyo, causing a tsunami. So survival capsules may provide some peace of mind and be a form of insurance everyone hopes will never be needed.
Is that it? I guess so. So, hey, why can't we get, like, ISIS survival capsules?
I mean, put a big ring around your neck so they can't behead you.
Yeah, well...
Jeez.
That's pretty crazy. But again, let's prey on the fear of people.
Hell yeah. Fear makes a lot of cash revenue, let me tell you right now.
It sure does. Well, look at some of the other alternative media that run commercials.
Exactly. Bingo.
Which, by the way, I might have to someday because things aren't going so well as far as trying to cover the network with a penny a day.
Yeah.
So I might have to. But if I do have to run some sort of ads, it's not going to be for Squatty Potty, so don't worry about it. I'll find good stuff that actually might be useful.
That's funny. Squat.
Or we were talking about actually seeing if we can get some of these craft brew companies to advertise alternative beer manufacturers. That might be fun, right?
Yeah, there you go. That'd be cool. That's actually a great freaking idea.
Hey, and who doesn't need a beer during the apocalypse?
That's right. Beer's going to be a hot commodity, let me tell you.
Well, a couple weeks ago when I took some time off, I was going through all my survival books, and I do have quite a decent library. I mean, not huge, but I probably have a good 20 books or so. Different survival, like someone had recommended to me a long time ago to get the Army Survival Manual, so I have that, and I have Matt Stein. He was Drew Lamb's guest on Off Grid Journey.
Oh,
last
yeah.
week.
I remember that.
Yeah, and Matt is great, man. We had him on twice on different shows way back on the old network. He actually is the only guest that made me cry.
Oh, my God.
I was muted. Oh, yeah, he was talking about Fukushima. You know, he's a 30-year MIT-trained engineer who definitely knows, you know, what's going on and what could happen and et cetera. And, yeah, by the end, I was, like, bawling. I was on mute. But before I even knew Matt, I had his book. I purchased it. It was called, like, When Technology Fails, and it really took a look at, like, EMPs and everything that could happen in regards to that. So that's a really good one. But two of the other books that I have are on making homebrew, and one is on making moonshine, one is on making beer and wines, and how to use components that you have laying around in your house every day in order to make like stills and stuff. So
that's awesome.
And I'll tell you what, for a trading commodity, if you got to have something to trade in at some point, there is not anybody at some point during the apocalypse who is not going to feel like they want to have some alcohol. And on the flip side of that, for the moonshine, I believe I had read anything over 90% alcohol content actually will burn in a gasoline engine.
So there's some dual use for that. I mean, big time. I mean, people would pay or trade or whatever big money for that. You know?
Yeah. So I don't know. That might be kind of fun. I might hit up some of the decent brewers that I found that I enjoy their beer and ask them if they want to be part of an alternative movement.
That's awesome.
But
who knows? You might be able to. You never know what kind of inroads with people you might, create doing that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So where do we go from here? I don't know. There's tons of crap.
Captain Gringo in the chat room said put Kevlar turtlenecks on for
there
ISIS.
You go, for ISIS, yeah.
I don't know. I really, with that capsule, that tsunami capsule, I mean, if there was like that, like a giant like tsunami that's going to take out like the entire West Coast or some crap like that, I mean, a capsule's not going to save you from like bashing into like buildings and things like that. Really, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes these people just like to spend money on garbage researching junk.
Well, I mean, it sure did look like it might withstand some beating around, but I don't know how long you're going to be able to survive in this little tiny metal capsule.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have
you're
to
going to find capsules with 10 dead people in them.
Sure.
As you're out in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah. No food, no water, and even if you did have food and water, all that stuff's going to bounce around if you're being jostled about. I mean,
and look at how out of sorts the entire country of Japan was after that disaster. I mean, there wasn't anyone coming to rescue you.
No, and
it was months
there's not
later.
Going to be either. There's not going to be anybody to come rescue you. I think that's the whole freaking point.
Well, that FEMA class that I took all those years ago, that really is what that class was about, was trying to empower the populace to know how to try to take care of themselves when no first responders would be coming.
Exactly. And even the hurricane that hit New York, I mean, same thing there. People, like, weeks later, people were still saying, hey, man, we need help over here. Weeks later. And, I mean, just don't expect it. You got to watch out for yourself. Really, that's the bottom line here. I don't know if any tsunami capsule's gonna help you.
I'd say better than a tsunami capsule. Why don't you move to higher ground?
Yeah, like Alaska or something like that.
I wouldn't be moving to Alaska. No.
My gosh, I'm half thinking about it.
What, moving to Alaska?
Yeah.
No, Alaska's not a good place to be.
It's not.
That's like ground zero for all the radiation.
Oh, yeah, I guess it is, isn't it?
I actually spent some time yesterday afternoon. Was a little bit quiet for me for the first time in probably 4 months, maybe. So it was good. I actually just got to do like free association, start poking around on all the pages and the sites I maintain and go, oh, you know what? I haven't done this in a while. And one of them was my Fukushima page. I had kind of let that slack just a little bit for news. But, I mean, all the news is bad news. So, when I look at just the events that are going on now versus anything that's new coming out of... I'm just reading a comment here. All the news that's new news versus news coming out of Fukushima, which, like I said, all of it is bad news. And all of it's the same news. It's way, 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 way worse than what they told us in the beginning, and we've been saying that since day one. So it's not any huge surprise to me, but I did dig into some of the resources I haven't touched in a while and found some interesting things that really are very damning. And one was this report. I believe it was a presentation that was given. Oh, actually, no, I know what it was. It was Diablo Canyon out of California, which I looked it up on the map. I wasn't really exactly sure where that was. And it is just north of Los Angeles, by the way. Diablo Canyon is a nuclear reactor facility. And every year, just like other nuclear reactor facilities, they have to put out their yearly report. And... Why does my comment look like it's been edited? I could have swore that I had way more information in there, but maybe I didn't.
No.
It's a little weird.
Yeah, what the heck? Isn't just north of Los Angeles? So it's a nuclear facility just north of Los Angeles.
Of Los Angeles,
Isn't that highly seismic activity?
Yeah, too. I actually was looking at fault maps too in conjunction with this, and I was pretty disgusted. But here, I just want to read this to you, and I'm going to drop you guys some links because there have been people out there in the alternative movement that since the beginning, I mean, you guys, many of you have listened to me from the beginning, know that the reason I got even started in this was because of Fukushima. And like I've said, more increasingly over the last few years, I mean, it doesn't really matter anymore if it's a bazillion or a quadrillion or a quintillion becquerel of radiation. It's beyond anything that science has ever known, and quite a number of famous physicists have come out and said that now. But these two reports, so there was the 2012 report and the 2013 report that came out of Diablo Canyon. It's their operating, let me see if I have it in the title here somewhere, Diablo Canyon Power Project 2012 and 2013 Annual Radiological Environmental Operating Report. And so they got to put these out every year. So let me just read to you these two paragraphs that I took a screenshot and put in as an image. And then I actually linked to the two operating reports so you could see with your own eyes. But I took a screenshot out of the PDF for this. So this is out of the 2012 report from Diablo Canyon. So anyone in California, that's what I was going to say. So there's quite a number of alternative people in our genre that I have seen in my feed post things like, oh, radiation's getting to California here in the next 6 months, they say. Oh, the radioactive island, yes, but radiation has been there since the very beginning, okay? I actually had my hands on those original EPA reports that ran from all of the United States EPA radiation detectors, okay? I actually still have that. So if you guys want to see the historical data from 99 all the way up through until April of 2011, I can get that to you. I have it in Excel. But listen to this report. So this is from a facility just north of Los Angeles, and they're a nuclear facility, so you know that they're not just running around with an inspector $500 radiation detector in their hands pretending that they know what they're doing on the beach, okay? This is actually a nuclear facility on the beach that has high-tech gear. All right. So the report states, on March 11th, 2011, the Tohoku Oki earthquake, which is the one outside of Fukushima, magnitude 9.0, and tsunami struck the eastern coast of Japan. The tsunami associated with this event caused nuclear accidents at the Daiichi Nuclear Power Station in Fukushima Prefecture, Japan. Isotopic releases occurred in Japan and were carried by the jet stream to the west coast of the United States during March of 2011. Now, this is an official report from Diablo Canyon to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of the United States. Okay? This is an official document. So everything that we have been saying has been acknowledged by that statement. Do you hear that?
Yes.
All right, so let me continue. Throughout 2012, the DCPP, which stands for Diablo Canyon Power Project, continued to detect cesium-137 within milk, vegetation, monitoring wells, fish, and meat due to deposition of cesium-137 from that event, meaning Fukushima, with the approximate 30-year half-life of cesium-137. Additional discussion of the Fukushima-related cesium-137 is found within Section 4.5 of this report, and there is another whole section on this. Next paragraph. Groundwater isotopic monitoring was conducted in accordance with the Nuclear Industry NEI 07-07 Groundwater Protection Initiative, more affectionately known as GPI. Concentrations of tritium were detected in 5 monitoring wells: Station OW1, OW2, DY1, GW1, and 8S3 near the power block. This tritium was evaluated and attributed to rain washout of gaseous tritium exiting the plant venting system via an approved isotopic effluent discharge path. Yes, those Mark I reactors, which Fukushima was, which are all around our country as well, that had the failure and had been known to have failures per Arnie Gunderson, had this alternative add-on put onto them quite a number of years ago that was for venting steam, radioactive steam, and that failed.
Wow.
But that's where now this tritium came from, they are saying. Hold on, let me find back where I was. No groundwater tritium has been attributed to the Diablo Canyon Power Project system leaks or spills. So none of it.
That's interesting as hell.
Yep. Concentrations of cesium-137 were also detected in 2 shallow monitoring wells, DY1 and 8S3. This cesium was evaluated and attributed to rain washout of Fukushima fallout isotopes during March 2011 rain events along the coast of California. Now, guys, cesium-137 and cesium-134 has a different half-life. I don't know off the top of my head. But the signature of Fukushima is cesium-137 and 134. Cesium-137, which we knew but also is evidence in this document, is a 30-year half-life. So if it washed out in 2011, it's still going to be here until 2041 at least. Because, remember, it's only a half-life. So only half of that will decompose to the next least radioactive isotope in the periodic table.
I see.
Okay, so whatever is the next one below cesium-137, half of all of that radiation will decompose to the next least radioactive isotope. But the other half of it will still be cesium-137. And then in the next 30 years, another half of that will decompose to the next lowest. And the ones that are already at the next lowest in 30 years will decompose to the next one lowest in the periodic table. So even though it's 30 years, it could be 100,000 years before it finally becomes lead, which is the end result of nuclear decomposition. Now, when you look at stuff such as plutonium, let's say, that has a half-life of millions of years for some of it, think about how long that's around.
I'm glad that you are deciphering this, because many people, when they hear, oh, it's just got a half-life of 30 years, oh, well, half of it will be gone in 30 years, and that's not true.
No, and only half of it will be decomposed to the next lowest radioactive isotope. And see, 3 Mile Island got me into studying what nuclear was all about. I grew up in the southern tier region of New York State, which is right near Pennsylvania. And when that happened in 78 or 79, well, how I learned of it was on freaking Saturday Night Live, where they did a skit. I think we played that even once on one of the shows that I did.
Oh, wow.
Where Jimmy Carter went down to visit the plant, and he got irradiated, and he turned huge, and they had no clothes that big, so he had to wear a loincloth. It was like so damn funny. But it really raised the question in a child's mind, what is a nuclear power plant and why is this a big deal? And so I did a report then. I was in 3rd grade. I did a report on it for my class as to why we should be going solar versus nuclear and what all the issues are, the waste and the half-lives and what what happens when there's exposure and how you ingest it. And I mean, I was 11.
Wow.
So and then the year I graduated from high school, Chernobyl happened. So
right.
And the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded also. That was also that year. That was the day I graduated, and my 18th birthday. So
oh, wow.
There were some pretty significant events that year. And again, I started asking questions about fallout and things of that nature. So when Fukushima happened, that's why this was such a huge, huge deal to me, because now I have a kid. And it had been many years since I had even really looked and delved into what was going on in the nuclear industry. I just kind of forgot about it. And when you have a kid, you have that mama bear instinct, and I know how bad it is.
That's
and
right.
when they said that there were multiple meltdowns, that caused me to sit in a corner and rock for about a week or two.
Yeah, well,
all I could do was cry. I just cried and cried and cried. Anytime someone just said one word to me, I'd burst into tears.
Yeah, we know that when that there was an explosion that happened, we know some of that freaking core reactor ended up in Norway 4,000 miles away.
Yeah, they announced that not too long ago now.
Yeah.
But we watched a lot of this unfold too, because the NRC reports were out there. There was still all public data, as was the EPA data on that RadNet. And then they started, and you had the atmospheric simulators that were going on, one out of Norway, and the other one might have been out of like Germany or France, I believe it was. And they got shut down. And so did the magnetometer.
Yes.
That was looking at the weird things going on with the Earth's magnetic field. That was shut down. Yeah, a lot of tools that we were using to catch real-time data, they turned off. So now you don't really have that. But now, through different sources and different things that are kind of trickling out, like this official report that they're required to publish every year. But wow, did that put out some details that I don't know were necessarily intentional. And they were put out matter-of-factly, too. That's what pisses me off. And did you hear that? It wasn't like, oh, and refer to this research, to see where we're getting our findings from. It was, as you know, this event that happened and all this Fukushima radiation was deposited. Let me continue a little bit more, because, I know that there's a bunch of our listeners in California. I hope Zori's listening, if she has some sort of internet maybe on her phone.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to read. I just read this. The cesium was evaluated and attributed to the rain washout of Fukushima fallout isotopes during March 2011 rain events along the central coast of California. During these 2011 rain events, Fukushima-related cesium-137 was deposited into the central coast environs in a concentration of 2.4 to 25.4 picocuries per liter. Now, I really want someone to step up who understands the differences between all of these different measurements. If you look at that EPA data sheet that I managed to download before everything was shut down, all the different types of monitoring that they do, there was groundwater, there was air, there was milk, and there was one more. Groundwater, air, milk, rainwater. So there were 4 of them. They all had different methods of collecting data and different measurements that they presented that data in. And even testing for different isotopes had different methods of testing. So like doing uranium and plutonium was totally different than looking for cesium.
Right.
And remember, there's different types of radiation. There's alpha, beta, gamma, and I think that's it. Alpha, beta, gamma are the 3 biggies that you're going to see. All right, so let me read a little bit more. So it was deposited from 2.4 to 25.4 picocuries per liter. Now, even though I don't know what that range is or how much that means, going for anything from 2 to 25 is a pretty significant delta, I would say. This Fukushima cesium-137 was detected locally in 2012 environmental samples due to the approximate 30-year half-life of the cesium-137. It should also be noted that studies of the Diablo Canyon Power Project site groundwater gradient indicated that any groundwater, subsurface as well, flow beneath the Diablo Canyon Power Plant power block and was not used as a source of drinking water, which is true. Some places probably, and I know that they do use groundwater for drinking water, but at least the stuff that was under the canyon was not utilized for drinking water. But if it's in the groundwater, guess what that means?
Yeah.
And they even said it up above. They found it in the milk, the vegetation, the monitoring wells, the fish, and the meat.
The vegetation.
Yes, all of it. The food chain.
Yes,
all the
whole
food chain.
entire food chain. Oh my God.
So all those farms that were still producing back in those days because we didn't have the drought yet. It says, due to the topography and the site characteristics, this groundwater gradient flow discharged into the Pacific Ocean. So, any of you that were swimming or surfing in the Pacific Ocean that said it might still be safe because that big blob of radiation that also is heading toward California hasn't gotten here yet, were sorely mistaken. It rained out. What do you think happens to rain? It goes into the groundwater. Where do you think the groundwater eventually runs? Into the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
So all of that deposition that came down in the air and in the rainwater ended up in your groundwater, probably your drinking water, because your aquifer, if it's open air, was also collecting rainwater. Just because you weren't getting it from under Diablo Canyon doesn't mean there was a big brick wall there, invisibly, that stopped it. It rained out. So, that was the 2 paragraphs. If anyone is interested, each of those reports are 240 some odd pages each, but I found both of the links to the PDF. Thank you to Any News. I am dropping that into chat. If anyone actually doesn't have Facebook or subscribe to my Fukushima Facts Facebook page or in chat, you can go to fukushimafacts.com. And under the news tab, I feed all of this news that I put onto Facebook out to that site as well. And some of our shows. I think I have Kevin Blanche and Libby, their shows automatically pushing into a feed over there.
Sweet.
There's Pigmine videos, though I haven't updated that in quite a while. There have been some more recently about Fukushima that I need to add. So there's lots of good information there. And all the Earth and Sky tools.
Yay!
Stuff there, some real-time radiation monitoring for the U.S. and different regions that are still available. So that's worth it. So, all right, anyone on the West Coast, let that be a wake-up alarm who is still waiting for that blob to arrive in the ocean.
Or I wouldn't even be eating any of the fruits coming out of there. Anything
No,
with California.
I avoid
It
as
doesn't
much
matter
as
if it's
possible.
organic. It doesn't matter if it's organic. If
And
it's
it's not just
organic,
California. Hello, Alaska, Oregon, Washington. You guys all got a good dose. So let's look at another report now. So I came across something else. And this is from a NOAA presentation that was given to the U.S. Department of Energy that actually was calling them out and throwing a bullshit card on the table. And in this presentation, what I found extremely interesting, so I'm not exactly sure how this got out to the public, but oops. It says on the bottom of the PowerPoint slide, not for distribution, internal use only.
Oh.
And there are some screenshots from 2 atmospheric models that used to be available out there, and they still might be in some form or another, but who knows whether or not we trust the data that's being spit out of there now. But in the beginning, we could trust the data because they hadn't gotten their ducks in a row yet to figure out how to plug the holes of information that were leaking out, that we were publishing like mad people at the time, that nobody understood. But you know what? The good point is we got our hands on a lot of it, and just because we didn't know what it meant or how to read it was okay because that stuff got out.
Right.
It's out there in the ether, and it exists in 10,000 little grubby hands.
And there's nothing they can do about it.
No, and that's why the internet now must be killed in its current form. And why, like what they did in Japan, they passed that law that made all of this information considered national secrets. And what did we have passed in this country that actually could have that same effect if they wanted to?
That's right.
What?
The NDAA.
The NDAA. So if they started making like information about terroristic activities a threat to national security.
That's right.
And reporting on that stuff. If they made leaking documents, which, you know, there have been 2 of those on the table already, and hey, what happened to those cases? Were those 2 journalists who were contacted by an unnamed source within some of our government agencies, and they were whistleblowers. And what's his name? The
Michael Hastings?
Well, Hastings, yes. And what's it, that slime ball that I can't stand? He just looks so greasy, the one that's been in the consulate.
Edward Snowden.
No, Snowden is in Russia. The other dude down in like the Brazilian or where that
McAfee?
No, McAfee was accused of a lot of things, but he actually started a new company. No, the slimeball that was accused of rape in Sweden too.
Oh, that guy. Ew. God, I can't.
Oh, this is a Cupid doll moment. I need to get UCY Cupid dolls. What was his name, chat room? He actually, I heard, was planning on coming out. And they were afraid in the beginning that if he came out, he would be busted. Does anybody know? What was his name? The whistleblower. And he monetized it all. Yes, Julian Assange. Thank you.
Oh.
Makes me want to vomit every time I see him.
Okay. Wiki.
Yes.
All right. See, he is such a slime ball that I totally blocked him from my mind. How's that?
Yeah, well, that's good. Okay, so I don't want the conversation to take a right turn. I want to get back to finishing what I discovered in my Fukushima research. So anyway, this presentation came out from NOAA. They were giving it to the Department of Energy. And on the PowerPoint presentation itself, it says not for distribution, internal use only. And what they point out in these 2 atmospheric graphs, and they were simulations. These were simulation graphs. There are 2 different simulations where screenshots were taken. And there's a piece of software out there. It's an atmospheric simulation software that is used by places like the Weather Channel and the Department of Energy, the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, the Environmental Protection Agency. They use this software, and it's called the Hypersplit model. And there's all kinds of different software for doing atmospheric modeling. But basically what it does is it takes the high pressures and the low pressures in the jet stream, and then they are able to do scientific modeling. So they can say, at this specific GPS location, namely in this case being Fukushima. If we added X amount of cesium-137 and X amount of cesium-134 and X amount of, this much nuclear fuel that was that MOX fuel, especially in reactor number 3 that came from France, remember? MOX fuel is like a recycling of fuel. And I believe they were doing a lot of that in that Tennessee Paducah facility as part of that bombs. What was it called? That happy-go-lucky send us all your nuclear waste project that we had going with Russia that actually ended December 31st, 2013.
That's right.
Right as Paducah declared bankruptcy and then started going into their new facility in Ohio. Remember that?
Yes.
That MOX fuel came from France, though, and the problem with MOX fuel and the Mark I reactor is that it burns too hot for that facility. It's a super fuel, and it takes, I don't remember, I'm not a nuclear scientist, so please forgive me if I don't remember all the facts to this, but whatever the base fuel is, what's the base fuel in a fuel rod that goes, if it's a brand new, happy, healthy, is it uranium? And I believe they added plutonium, and that's part of the MOX process.
Okay.
And it makes it very, very, very toxic if it burns up.
I can't even
Which is like what fucking happened in Fukushima.
Right.
And so, anyway, they release this report on an internal slide for this presentation for the Department of Energy, titled Not for Distribution, Internal Use Only. They show 2 hypersplit modelings done in the early, and if I click on this I might be able to see, I can't see it, and I'd have to go way back in there, but it was March 26th, 2011. So guys, March 11th to March 26th is 15 days, so 2 weeks after the Fukushima disaster. They show 2 hypersplit models. One was run by the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which has a dotted line to our federal government, but they really are a private institution. I don't know if you knew that. And they do a lot of lobbying to Washington. And they make a lot of money, and they cannot open a facility unless it has an insurance policy, but no insurance company is fucking stupid enough to insure them. So, what do? They make the taxpayers fund the insurance.
Part of the nuclear cartel.
Yes, it is. The nuclear cartel is very alive and very big, and they are in beds with all of the governments. I know 3 in particular. One is the United States, one is the Japanese, and one is the French. And if you get to the Japanese nuclear cartel that includes the Japanese government and the Japanese Nuclear Regulatory Commission, they have their 3rd little party member in the orgy, and that is the Japanese yucca, whatever they're called, organized crime.
Yakuza.
Yakuza, thank you, or Yakuzi. Yes. So I don't know how much, what you want to call organized crime in the United States, but I would have to say that the corporatocracy probably has a lot to do with it.
I would say so.
The builders of.
So what did those maps say?
So what these maps show. So knowing all the substances that we're talking about here now. So we're talking uranium, plutonium, cesium-134, cesium-137, as well as many other isotopes, tritium, that all were coming off of there. Each of those different radioactive isotopes has a different hypersplit model. So just because the deposition of, like, iodine-131, which I've seen models for those as well, that typically is shown in purple on a map. Iodine-131 is a very short half-life of, like, 10 days. But it shows that there's real-world fission going on, that you're having an open-air nuclear reaction when you see iodine-131. So that's not a big deal, but what is a big deal are things such as cesium-134, cesium-137, uranium, and plutonium. Uranium and plutonium take a lot more to measure, so they typically don't measure that off the bat, but they do measure 134 and 137. These 2 maps that they published showed one from March 26, 2011, from a hypersplit map for cesium-134 from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission of the United States. The other one shows the federal hypersplit model on March 26, 2011 for cesium-134 from the Department of Energy. And there was almost a 10,000 time larger deposition release on the map for the Department of Energy than there was for the Nuclear Regulatory Commission.
Ooh.
And the one for the Department of Energy is showing that within the first 15 days after the Fukushima accident, the radiation was already at the outlying islands of Alaska.
Holy crap.
The Fukushima one shows it's just localized to Japan. And that is our own Nuclear Regulatory Commission that runs and makes decisions on all of the levels of radiation that we can be exposed to in conjunction with the EPA. Now, if anybody wants to see that picture, again, that is in my news feed on FukushimaFacts.com. It's on the Fukushima Facts Facebook page. I dropped it into chat. It is in that PDF, and if you, let me see if I can actually snag the direct link to the picture. And
that's hardcore.
Drop that into chat. That is irrefutable proof for anyone who is still freaking waiting for it to reach the oceans of California or to get into the food or the drinking water or anything of that nature. I have just given you 100% irrefutable proof from agencies within the government that didn't have their shit together before information got out. That's what I just gave you.
That's like, it's Ebola in slow motion because it takes
it's
years.
taking out our immune system slowly but surely. It's the soft kill. And now that our immune systems are weakened, all of these different virulent diseases floating around in our atmosphere, and like Dana said, how do we know at some point they're not going to change the composition of whatever the shit is they're spraying on us from the sky?
Exactly.
And it's not that hasn't happened already. There have been many cases. I just dropped that picture if you want to just see a quick representation of those two models graphically. I dropped it in there, but like I said, it's embedded into the story also on FukushimaFacts.com, so you can see it. But there have been many documented times that they have dumped poisonous shit on the American public to see what was going to happen. And typically low-income, minority neighborhoods. But hey, guess what? They've been working really hard to make the United States into a third-world country, haven't they?
That's right.
As they're chucking the last fixtures out the back door. So we're all third world country minority population. And like I said before, guys, R&D, baby. We get to erase the R&D budget line. That's what the corporatocracy is jumping up and down, toasting their $1,000 glass champagne to. Bottom line for 2014 is going to look pretty damn good. I rub my hands together at that.
And they think that they're celebrating.
And all the while, distraction. You know, I noticed in a couple of those videos way back when, they came out and said, wow, how amazing. Where's all this money coming from? Because these videos are so well produced. They're produced to the caliber of Hollywood.
That's right.
Of course they are. Because you know what? With that blending between reality and fantasy that they've been working on for the last 20 or more years with movies and video games and virtual reality and real-time like Survivor shows and, what is it, Big Brother, where they're following people around in their daily lives, and then social media, sharing every time you fucking fart on social media. They've taught people that you share everything like that, and you watch, and you are more interested in what everyone else is doing than what's going on in the real world, because hey, it's scary out there. Get into your Dogma Snuggie, as Kevin Blanche says. I got to tell you, my Dogma Snuggie for those couple weeks was fucking beautiful. I got it decorated with like glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling.
That's awesome.
Couple good brews, some good tunage, man, and some great scenery, maybe a fishing day or two. And I was just in heaven. It was such a happy fucking place. So I can see why the majority of people just slip into that happy little fucking place. But in the meantime, we've been hijacked. Everything's been hijacked. And while they're showing you all this, you're eating up everything they believe. Or they believe. Everything they're feeding you, you believe.
Right.
But it's just the distraction. How long have people been saying about the distraction?
Forever.
There are major toxic things going on to every atom in the biological structure right now. And all of those biological processes are being mutated and manipulated and turned into something else.
Rewritten.
Something is going on. And, you know, way back in the beginning, my husband kind of offhandedly, and I've said this a few times now, I mentioned this comment that he made, but every day that goes by, I'm beginning more and more to believe that he might have been right on the money in the very beginning. That it's almost like they're terraforming.
Right. That's what I've said that too. I've totally said that on air.
The acidifications of the oceans.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there are bazillion fish, guys. I mean, like all these different species, and now we're talking like large water mammals, like whales and dolphins, and I mean large ones in large numbers.
Yes.
And I saw yesterday like this two-headed freaking whale.
That's right. I saw that too.
I mean, in almost 4 years that could have happened. Absolutely. There's some deep-ass shit going on. And I really, you know, in chat the other day, I started making some free association. But I was looking at, like, someone was bringing up whether or not Darwin and evolution was for real. And I agree that, yeah, I think that there is some truth to that. Our DNA code, though, if you really look into the depths of DNA and that whole LUCA that I had talked about maybe a month or two ago, maybe it was a month ago, LUCA, the operating system that they found for all of biology, like digging into this genetic engineering, one of the things that they found is that across all lines of living things on this planet that are all carbon-based, we have this one set of, I guess they're genes, some sort of proteins or something. I mean, this base set to our DNA, maybe amino acids actually is what they would be, where we're all similar. So they've traced it back to like the beginning code, they think. And they're calling that LUCA. And you know, when I searched LUCA, I didn't see a lot of news on it. I searched it again recently because I was trying to tie that RNA stuff into it. And that RNAi that they're manipulating with to help program DNA.
Yes.
But LUCA's even more than any of that. LUCA is the core system that would be, if there was an off switch for all of biology, that would be it.
Yikes, man. And they've isolated it
They've
down
isolated it down to that, yes.
Shit.
They know what it is. And I kind of touched on this yesterday, like even getting into the metaphysical stuff and religious stuff and ancient texts and that type of thing. They all wrote about this good versus evil, right? I mentioned this earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And dark versus light. I mean, there always was this eternal struggle going on, and then this big battle at the end and whatever. Guys, linguistics and languages was something that I always had this natural ability for, so it never was anything I had to try at. I just am able to look at things and decode them.
Right.
I have this, awesome. I don't know, even my former rocket scientist boyfriend, who for all the years that we fought and whatever and didn't see eye to eye on things, one of the things he always appreciated about me, he told me this not too long ago, probably within the last few years, we still talk occasionally, is that one thing I've always been able to do is my brain has been able to, like, connect dots. And, you know, he did it, of course, in, like, a sarcastic term, but it's it's the ability to be able to go across many different genres and see how maybe they could have some sort of interrelation with each other. And
Absolutely.
so in all my studying of ancient texts and religions and reasons why beliefs trump truth, let's say, that cognitive dissonance, you
Sure.
go by what you believe. And religion was a big part of that.
Yeah.
I mean, you believe all this bullshit because someone told you to believe it, not because you gained any insider proof or, proved it to yourself. And many have died because of that. And so that's why that was important to me. But take it one step further. So they all have ancient texts. They all have ancient allegories and stories, which I think now maybe aren't necessarily allegories. I think some of the ancient texts actually had a string of truth that ran through them that was more of a historical context, but maybe embellished. Because remember, back in those days, we had scribes. So you were narrating a story, or maybe it was even like passed down through generations before a scribe who was part of the religious caste, mind you. Not everyone knew how to read and write back in the ancient days. The scribe was writing down the story, and books were reproduced by hand.
Right.
So you got to imagine, just like that game where everyone sits around in a circle and whispers one phrase, and then it goes around the circle, and everybody's, in a different frame of mind for whatever reason. You see things differently than I do. 10 people can see the same event and report events differently.
Yes.
That's proven by sociology. I mean, that happens. That happens in a crime. Just like all of that, these ancient texts, as they're being deciphered, there's got to be an imprint from the scribe themselves through their worldview that was put upon that. Their moral code, their belief system had to filter into that somehow, and their ability to be good at languages. Because some of these languages don't have exact meanings for words from one language to another. And when you've taken a text and it's been decoded through 8 languages before it ever made it to English, and each of those languages that it was decoded from were word meanings were decoded upon based upon the context of the sentence or paragraph, there definitely could have been some mistakes. And who's to say that that scribe wasn't sitting there sucking some religious wine at the time?
Right.
Himself up on fucking heroin or whatever other crazy morphine shit that they did back in those days.
Right.
Because they did do crazy shit. And they all played with mercury in their hands. And
yeah, but always, there's always something lost in translation when you translate different languages.
Right, and then you go like freaking 8 languages to English, and I gotta say that when you look at a lot of the Bible, let's say, or the Old Testament, if you just take that and you adjust it maybe 3.5 degrees, you most certainly could put a little bit different translation on it and take a look at it from a different perspective. Take a look at angels. This is the one thing that I always, I think people started to think that I was getting a little freaky in the head, but right before all this happened, I really had started to dig into ancient religious texts and the whole UFO alien thing. It's something that I've been interested in, just the UFO phenomenon, since I was a kid, is I saw a couple freaky things.
Wow.
And as I got into my studying of, literature, and then I really kind of pinpointed the medieval realm, and then from there I started to dig into religious texts, and then started going global, and I really got into I was giving myself my master's and my PhD without paying for it, is what I was doing.
That's awesome.
That's what I was going to go to school for, and my eventual thing is I wanted to be an archaeologist. I wanted to be the female Indiana Jones finding, artifacts. So my life took a right turn. But hey, you can still do it thanks to the internet. But what I started to take a look at is if you just put yourself in a little bit different zone and then start reading those texts, you could come up with other meanings for things.
That's right.
And putting different connecting points. I mean, just because a text was written and then you were interpreting it based upon your environment doesn't mean that it's true. Maybe you didn't understand technology back in those days. Maybe you didn't have, sending thoughts via text type through the air to someone else 3,000 miles away. See what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
the times and the technology really make magic not magic anymore. And so when you start looking at that and you look at now the Bible based upon all the technology that we know and maybe some of the Sumerian tablets and things of that nature, you could see things such as angels coming down from the sky and seeing craft in the sky and coming down and being glowing beings and, whatever, as potentially, maybe it was a contactee. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, well,
Who
I've
the fuck
seen
knows?
those pictures where there's cave drawings and stuff on cave walls of UFOs.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, if you really dig into a lot of that way ancient stuff, you're going to go, what the fuck, Chuck? Look at the Aboriginal paintings of all the things with everything has big black eyes. These creatures with big black eyes. So, you can't tell me that that's all lunacy. It's not. There's lots of stories, all woven throughout human history. There's lots of discoveries coming out now of civilizations that are way older than we ever thought. So, like I've been saying the last couple shows, just because you're standing in the city looking up at the Milky Way and you don't see anything, it does not mean that it isn't there.
That's right.
And I've also found evidence, by the way, in looking at footage, and I may have talked about this before, but this was another realm of my studies for a while, because there was a lot of video footage put out by NASA and other official sources that are floating around out on YouTube that were showing different camera shots of things such as shots over the Pacific Ocean from the space shuttle and the International Space Station, where they were showing them in different wavelengths of light. And remember, we can't see outside of visible light, but they were showing them out of visible light as well as out of ultraviolet light. And in the visible light, you saw nothing but big blue. And in the ultraviolet light, there were these things, and I mean, I gotta say, they definitely look saucer-shaped to me, that were zipping in and out and 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 in and out from the atmosphere to the ocean.
Wow.
So what were those? But anyway, I digress. I want to finish my thought before the show ends. So if you take a look at a religious text, like I said, and turn it like 3.5 degrees to the east, let's say, and start looking at things a little bit differently, there are technologies in there and things that were maybe miracles and apocalyptic disasters that maybe were translated one way at a time by a scribe, by society, by teachings over the years, that maybe if you just really opened your mind a little bit and did a little retranslating and tried to envision what they're trying to explain with historical as well as, like I said, allegorical events, maybe you'd get it. Well, I had a light bulb go on one day, and I was like, no shit, man. Think about it, and this might have been actually the other day. It is the good versus evil. The battle is the very fight for life on this planet. And all of this genetic engineering and this RNAi and these vaccines and this genetic manipulation of our food now using the same technology and these new X and Y chromosomes that they're putting into DNA code and having reproduced to be the first quote-unquote alien DNA that they will then be able to integrate with us. All this synthetic biology that is being produced and put in our food and put in our vaccines and put in our air and raining down on us from who knows where is to transform us. And what's really happening is some sort of terraforming. And it's all fueled by greed, by money, and we are duped by the carrot. We are duped by, I was saying this the other day, Bernays and commercialism. We are letting this happen because all we're doing is watching the carrot, the brainwashed public, running ahead, chasing after the technology that is our own doom. Maybe that's what Revelations and all that shit was about. The end of biological life and being taken over by some sort of synthetic life. And, you know, I had mentioned this a few times, too. Another little burst that I had, a horrible thought, was Carl Sagan one time talking about the two different life forms that could potentially exist if there was life in outer space. based upon our knowledge of the periodic table and the elements that are out there, and they were carbon-based life forms and silicone-based life forms. Well, here's a thought coming from the technology realm. Aren't chips and boards and that all considered silicone?
Yeah.
And all of this genetic manipulation and integration and transhumanism and becoming part of the machine and uploading ourselves to the internet to send thoughts and things, isn't that kind of like bringing life to this whole other form?
It's freaky. That's absolutely... I'm rocking.
I mean, guys, I gotta tell you, if you just turn the temperature, if you turn the compass just a few degrees, and I mean, go across like the Sumerian stuff. I mean, I definitely think that some of Sitchin's, people think Sitchin is a nutbag. I've read quite a few of his books, and I gotta say that if those tablets were decoded with any type of intelligence, and it even said something close to what he says that he said, where it gave every planet coming in from the outer solar system in, it knew all the colors, it knew which ones are retrograde, it talked about genetic engineering, and look at the Adam and Eve story about taking, Eve came from the rib of Adam. Well, now when you think about petri dishes, and they even had carvings that showed like this double snake between them. In the original Adam Eve story in the Sumerian tablets, I mean, it looked like a DNA strand.
Wow.
And Eve came from Adam's rib. Well, I'm sure they probably can do that shit right now. They can grow livers and lungs in petri dishes. They can make a human on a chip. DARPA's doing, right, to do all their testing.
That's right. So it could have been. Who knows? Aliens that did all this.
And look at the Hopi. Hopi talk about when the spiderweb crosses the sky or whatever. Guys, this is the time between the chemtrails and the internet.
That's right. That is the spiderweb that crosses the sky, is the chemtrails.
Yep. Well, and the internet. I mean, the internet is the web that now is going to imprison us.
Yeah. Jeez, man. I'm rocking.
Well, I mean... Don't rock, but shit. And tomorrow is 9/11. Obama's expected to announce the incursion into Syria. ISIS and Al-Qaeda, which is worse. That video, the first that we heard at the very beginning, was just unbelievable.
Yes, I agree. I hope we're not here tomorrow, like, screaming our heads off.
Well, I hope we are here tomorrow, but I hope we're not screaming our heads off. No.
Yeah, me too.
You know, and then add to that, Ebola.
Oh, I know. I just saw a Frontline documentary about that last night. Wow, let me tell you.
Yeah, Ebola's not pretty, but hey, it's all the bats' fault. Blame it on the bats.
Well, the radiation's the slow, and the Ebola's the fast kill.
Yeah, let me see, actually, if this is a video. Hecty dropped this. Yeah, it is. Hold on one second. Because this is what I've been saying all along, and Press TV came out. I might have to send this one to Pigman. I don't remember seeing this.
Means for deeper United States military and intelligence penetration of the African continent. Already, the United States has a military presence in Liberia, in Sierra Leone, as well as in the West African state of Nigeria, all three of which have been, to a lesser or greater degree, been impacted by the epidemic of the Ebola virus disease. The only way in which this disease can be tackled is through the proliferation of medical personnel, trained doctors, nurses, the development of field hospitals and clinics, and it's through this process that the disease can be arrested. The reason why this disease is having such a dramatic impact on Africa, a lot of it is a direct result of the legacy of colonialism and neo-colonialism. It has been admitted by the World Health Organization, the MSF, the Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders, the African regional organizations themselves, is the fact that there are not adequate healthcare facilities in these various countries, adequate research facilities, so this disease can be tackled both through research as well as through medical treatment. This treatment would be designed to contain the virus and also to eliminate it. But it's not a military solution. It's a medical solution, and the medical solution is definitely related to the lack of development, the lack of resources inside the region. The Ebola cases that have been sent to the United States for treatment have gotten very positive results, and that is directly related to the level of medical facilities and healthcare professionals that can address this issue. But it's not a military issue, it's a medical issue, and the medical issue is definitely related to the question of development in West Africa, and this is the only way in which there will be a long-term solution for this crisis. The disease at this point is a threat for West Africa, but it also is an international threat because there's no way it could be contained strictly in the West Africa region. There have been some cases in the northern region of the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is a Central African state, although they're claiming that the outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo is unrelated to the outbreak in West Africa, but still, we go back to the question of adequate medical facilities and adequate medical personnel. So this is the real solution. And
so I just want to end here quickly because if you caught what he said at the very beginning, I believe this is just another means for the United States military intelligence's deeper penetration of the African continent. Already the United States has military presence in Libya, Sierra Leone, as well as the African state of Nigeria, all of which have been impacted by the epidemic of Ebola. I said that a few days ago.
Yes.
Exactly. And we have drone facilities there as well. And guys, guess what? We're in the last 25 seconds of the show. We did it again. All right, everybody stick around because it is Wednesday. On Monday, Wednesday, Fridays, we have a treat now. Mr. Hal Anthony follows us with his archives from the last 2 months. He gave us permission to run those, so lots of good stuff you might have missed there. Mr. John Stokes, Mr. Jack Blood's back on the air, then Josh at 6 p.m. with Anti-Tyranny. I run Dane Wigington's after him from Saturday, Truth or Talk Radio with April and Burstein, and then Anti-Media with Nick DB. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, everyone, for listening today. We'll catch you tomorrow.
Thank you, guys. Hopefully we'll be here.
Hopefully we'll be here. Pay attention. Everybody take care.